Commence primary ignition.
Hey there friends, fans, and collectors. Welcome to another episode of Binary Sunset Review. I am Mike, and today we're going to be taking a look at VC 187, Bespin Escape Princess Leia. Now this is part of the newest Vintage Collection wave and should be seeing in shelves and should be delivered out to you if you pre-ordered it any day now. Let's get going.
You came nothing? You're braver than I thought.
Before I begin, I want to remind everyone, hit the subscribe button below. That way you'll stay on the forefront of the best Star Wars news and reviews as soon as I make them. This is part of the first wave of Vintage Collection releases in 2021. It includes Greef Karga, Bespin Escape Princess Leia, Snaggletooth, The Child on his first time on a Vintage Collection card back, and a reprint of the Return of the Jedi Boba Fett. That's the Blue Skies Boba. So keep an eye out for all those figures. Obviously the Boba and the Child figures are flying and going for wild, and these don't stay long on shelves. So I'll be sure to leave the UPC numbers for Target and the SKU codes for Walmart below so you can get yours today. This wave is also still up mostly for pre-order and hasn't yet shipped out to those who did pre-order it. As we know, we see them on shelves about a week or two before our pre-orders arrive. We as collectors have been waiting a long time for the Bespin Escape Leia. Then we finally have a completion to our 40th anniversary Empire Strikes Back crew, and we can finally kit out the Vintage Collection Millennium Falcon that we got last year. But first, let's take a look at the card back. Here we have the front of the card back for the Princess Leia Bespin Escape, and as we know with all the Vintage Collection cards, we have the silver piping along the outside. We have the name of the film that she's from right in the center there, in between the Star Wars label, that is the Empire Strikes Back. We have the Kenner logo on the very bottom right. We have the bubble around her. And we have a card back image that is, to say the least, not great. So it's a great iconic image. It's when she's under the Falcon, when she's just shooting at the stormtroopers when they're taking off, running away out of Cloud City. It's a great, great, great image. But it's grainy. So it is grainy. It is dark. You know, I understand that it's from it's from an old film, 40-year-old film at this point, but it really doesn't hold up to a lot of the card backs that we've seen in recent years, especially when you compare them. Because I mean, here's the Rebel Trooper one, and again, that's in a dark lit hallway, but man, that card back looks so much better. But anyway, it's a great iconic scene. It's Carrie Fisher's face. She's mid-escape. It's exactly what the card says it's gonna be, but a qualm I would have is it's a little bit dark and it could be a little bit higher res. We have her in her flight suit and that great, great Princess Leia iconic hairstyle from Empire Strikes Back. Moving on to the back here, we have the other figures that are in the line, and it is Princess Leia, Snaggletooth, Boba Fett, Greef Karga, and the Child. And this also immediately follows the reprint wave that we just saw. That's also on the back here. The rest is legalese. We have the piping, we have the Star Wars logo, the Vintage Collection logo, but an unfortunate amount of legal text. But let's get her out of this bubble. Let's finally take a look. First impressions have to be how nice it is to have another version of Princess Leia on a Vintage Collection card back. Princess Leia comes with her iconic E11 Imperial blaster. Now it's in a different paint scheme. It's actually kind of nice. It's in a chromed out paint scheme, so it's a little bit different from the ones that we've seen. It actually is very similar to the E11 paint scheme that we saw with our Minbin Stormtrooper. So he also had a nice chrome to his weapons, and it seems to be a similar print to that one that we saw. Very nice, very neat. I like that she comes with this because she's known for dropping stormtroopers with their own weapon. Each year I feel like we're getting better and better with these new facial sculpts. They really, really do look a lot more like the actors who portrayed them on screen. And it's great to see these advancements, especially in the new figures, but also in the reprinted figures that we're seeing. Talking articulation for Bespin Escape Leia. Now Bespin Escape... no. Take two. Talking articulation for our Bespin Escape Leia. Now this figure being a Vintage Collection figure has some nice articulation advancements, and being a Leia and a female figure, she tends to have kind of thinner thighs, thinner legs, definitely more dainty feet, and she even has these little heeled boots on. So it makes posing and stylizing a little bit more interesting, but it also is certainly more accurate for the character and certainly more accurate for the figure. Now, she does have pegs on the bottom of her feet, so you can secure her to a vehicle, you can secure her to a play set, all that kind of stuff that we've seen in the last couple years. Other than that, pretty standard, great articulation. She has ball and hinge heels, she has knee joints, she has thigh joints. Oh, actually, you know what? She does not have thigh joints. So normally on Vintage Collection figures, the thighs are able to spin out. Hers do not. I think it's just because of the design of the jumpsuit here. Moving on up to the arms, we have full articulation of the arm. She can conduct an orchestra or do all that jazz. She has elbows. She does not have wrist joints, which I think is interesting. She does have a turnable hand and elbow joints, but no wrist joints here. And we do have some great neck articulation. Now, one thing I will make of note that was brought up by people online in the community. So Princess Leia's iconic hairstyle here, the way it was packaged in the bubble, it kind of crushes her braids in the back. So a lot of people were complaining that they were stuck to the back of her neck like a ponytail. This is easily fixable if you have her soak in a little bit of hot water or just leave her out in the sun. Careful of that, but leave her out in the sun for a little bit. They become much more malleable and you can get them nicely separated and looking pretty decent. Pros for this figure would have to be just the addition of her to the collection. Another great Princess Leia mold that we've been, as collectors, calling out for years, but have never seen in the Vintage Collection. So it's great that we finally get a Bespin escaped Leia. A con I would have to add is always the accessibility one. So this figure was in a more recent wave of Vintage Collection figures. They don't stay on the shelves for long, and they are hard to track down. So, you know, whatever Hasbro can do to make these stay on shelves a little bit longer or make them, you know, get restocked on shelves better, accessibility is the only con I have for the Vintage Collection consistent. You know, I'd say now that we have this Leia, I think it would be great to see the other Bespin Leia, the Bespin gown Leia. Now that was a part of the Holy Grail of the Vintage Collection pack that was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive about 10 years ago. It would be great to see a repack of that. Hit the subscribe button below to stay on the forefront of the best Star Wars news and reviews as soon as I make them. I would certainly recommend picking up this newest wave of Vintage Collection figures. It definitely has some favorites in it. Boba Fett, the Child, but the Princess Leia specifically also. Princess Leias tend to flip pretty nicely on the secondary market, so it'd be nice to get your hands on one of these for a base price of $13. Now these, as I mentioned before, can be seen on shelves at Walmarts and Targets. I'll leave a link below for the DPCI codes and for the SKU codes, but you can also pre-order these across a bunch of different digital retailers. Be sure to get your Princess Leia today. She's a great addition to anybody's Rebel Force. Thanks for watching. Your likes and your views are greatly appreciated. I've been Mike. This is Binary Sunset Review. Be sure to take some time and smell the flowers. Have a couple moments for yourself out there because you deserve it. Have a great day out there. Stay safe, stay sane, and remember, the Force will be with you, always.
I'm just a simple man trying to make my way in the universe.